Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 9 of Just Jenni Lee. Today, I thought it would be fun, at least for me. I don't know for you, if I dug into the whole reason why I started the Milan art program, and also why it came to such a screeching halt within a couple weeks of me starting it, and why I feel motivated to pick it up again and all of that stuff. So I'm going to set my timer so that I stay reasonable, and let's get into it. So my dear friend Pat down in Florida, who I met up here while I was teaching, and she came and took some of my art classes, and then we just became fast friends. But she had always wanted to retire to Florida, and she's a little bit older than me. And so about 10 years ago, retire to Florida she did. Now, it's funny because once she left Florida, she found it a lot more challenging to sit at her easel and to make art. Now, I don't want to say I had something necessarily to do with that, but she would always tell me, oh, I need you down here to kick my butt. And I started visiting her really right away at the very outset of her move to Florida. So I've actually been friends with her a significant amount of time longer than I've known William for. So yeah, Pat and I have known each other for like 18 years maybe now, or maybe it's 16, somewhere in there. I don't know. So anyways, she had moved down to Florida, and she was just really struggling, I think, to get her creative juices flowing. And so about a year and a half ago or so, or 2 years now, it's almost going on 2 years, she had signed up for this program and really, really wanted me to join her. But I just, I didn't, well, I have a lot of art education underneath my belt, but, I just didn't feel like I had the time or the resources at the time to really dedicate to that type of endeavor. It seemed like it was a pretty intense type situation. Have to get a lot of materials that I didn't have because it was focused on oil painting, which is definitely not my area of expertise. I love to do acrylics, as you can see, and I do all the mini abstract acrylics. And then I also teach watercolors. It's kind of like what my specialty is, although I don't paint them every day. So anyways, fast forward to those days, to her being in Florida and just needing some inspiration, taking the class and being inspired, by it. And so I thought, well, I haven't really painted that much in oils, and they also teach some abstraction and other things. And I thought you can always benefit from more art education. So in the end, I eventually, maybe like, I don't know, 6 months later, I decided that I would give it a go, because honestly, she had a little bit of other art instruction outside of me in her time making art, but a lot of times I didn't feel like it had actually really, how do I want to say this, had necessarily expanded her skill set. So when I saw that she was creating what I thought was really good art, I was like, I haven't actually taken any art classes in years and years. It had been, gosh, at least 12 or so, 15 maybe years since I had taken actual academic type courses at a university. And so I thought, gosh, maybe I would benefit from this. Besides, again, my specialties in college were like printmaking and sculpture and drawing, and now I focus on acrylics and watercolors. And so what appealed to me the most was the really intense oil education and feedback, not just like going online and watching other oil painters, but like feedback from instructors and whatnot. So it appealed to me because at heart I'm an academic, and the classroom setting really works for me. So I decided that I would, try to catch up to her and join alongside her and take the course. So I started it off at some point in early September, I think, of 2023, somewhere in there, late August, early September. I don't remember exactly. But a couple weeks in, after I had started the Just Ducky painting that you're starting to see pop up on my feed, my channel, whatever you want to call it, I found out via a Facebook post that somebody really important to me had passed away. And it rocked my world. And it rocked my world hard, and it rocked it for a long, long time. And if you're wondering, how could that be of somebody who you're not like actually physically related to? I'll tell you what. First of all, I grew up with very little family in my life. My dad was in the Navy. We moved every couple of years, and I had no sisters. I had two brothers, that was it, two younger brothers. I had no real aunts, grandmothers, or anybody in my life. And so I kind of had a lonely existence as we bounced around from place to place. And our family we lived in upstate New York, and my maternal grandparents were all the way in California, and my paternal grandparents were about 6 hours away in Pennsylvania. And interestingly enough, I used to visit them when I was a kid, but my family had a falling out, and that ended pretty early on. So my main memories are actually of my family that was in California, but only really one person. My grandmother would come and fly out for 1 or 2 weeks once a year, and that was it. We got to see her for that time. I remember going to California one time when I was 12, and I saw my grandfather. Now, we were there when I was very young, like 1 year old, but after that, we weren't there. So, and then when I was 19, I married Naomi's dad, and my grandfather came to the wedding. He wouldn't walk me down the aisle, and my dad was performing the ceremony. So my brother actually ended up walking me down the aisle. But yeah, so those were the only times I had actually remembered meeting him. But my grandmother was here every year, and my dad's mom never came to see us. So we ended up over the years just getting really close to my grandmother. All of this to tell you that we didn't really have family. So, and we moved a lot. So I had a really hard time making friends as well. Now, another piece of context for this story is that my parents, as I've said in the previous Just Jenni Lee's, my parents' faith became really important to them when I was young, like 7 years old. So they were incredibly devout and really strict. So I was only really allowed to have very like certain friends, and mostly they had to be from the church. I was alienated a lot at school. You know how your parents might send a permission, or the teachers might send a permission slip home to the parents. At least back when we were kids. I know like kids can kind of do whatever they want now without parental consent, and it was really different back then. You had to have parental consent. And so my parents, if they were, doing something that my parents didn't feel was like, that like went against the Bible, essentially, they would say no. So like I wasn't even allowed to watch Ghostbusters for, a special day. I wasn't allowed to. There was a song way back in the 80s, I think it was, Walk Like an Egyptian. And my music class was doing like a mock music video, and I was not allowed to participate. I had to sit outside. Well, no, that one I sat in the corner of the classroom with like things like Ghostbusters or any other types of things like Beetlejuice or whatever. I would have to go to the library and like write a report basically while everyone's watching a movie. So it was really challenging. I was super alienated, and people didn't really make friends with me very well. So it was challenging. We moved schools every 2 years. I never really connected with anybody. And when I would connect with somebody, my parents would up and leave, sometimes overnight. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye. And I would just have to like move on very quickly. But in light of all that chaos, when they started going to this one church when I was 7, they continued to go to it until I was 15 years old. And the one person that I was allowed to have a lot of contact with, like spend the night over at her house, her come to my house, was my best friend named Anne. And Anne was the younger sister of a kind of, maybe not lost teen, but a teen that was struggling in her life. My parents met her, I think, when she was a senior in high school. And remember, that wouldn't be totally weird because they were just in their 20s. And this girl had been going to our church, much to the chagrin of her very Methodist parents. So you wouldn't really go to like a more evangelical style church if you're like Methodist. And so their family lived 1 block over from ours, but the streets didn't connect because I lived on like a cul-de-sac, and there was like a path through the woods that I would cut through, and Anne would cut through for us to get to each other's houses. But Anne was she was 2 years, no, excuse me. I didn't mean to say that. She was 10 years younger than her sister and 2 years older than me. And Lisa was her sister's name, and she would come over and babysit and take care of us when my parents had like bowling night, or sometimes if they were at church or whatever. And eventually, Lisa ended up living with us for several years as she went through college. She was just like a big sister to me, and my mom's best friend in the world. And I just remember her as being a very integral part of my life. Now, her younger sister, Anne, also was a big integral part of my life. I don't know what it was about Anne, but we essentially, when I say I was at that church a lot, she would come with us all the time. And again, her parents didn't really like her following Lisa's footsteps, but they allowed her to come to like youth night. And we spent the night at each other's house constantly. I went to like her weekly church, or the yearly church camp that was a week long. And my parents would like acquiesce to me going to like the Methodist church camp, back in the day, I guess, when denominations were like more at odds with each other. And so anyways, Anne and I just grew up over the years. And even as we were adults, we maintained our tight connection. She was my maid of honor when I was married when I was 19. She had come and lived with my family when I was in high school, trying to get on her feet because, like I said, she was a few years older than me. And we just maintained a tight connection. But when I got married, we started to kind of go our separate ways a little bit. Initially, we lived out near her in Buffalo, and even had brought her on as a roommate. But we didn't love living out there, Naomi's dad and I, and we ended up moving back home. And that's kind of when I feel like Anne and I went our separate ways. So I was still very early in my life, but mind you, I had met her when I was 7, and now I'm 20, and we were like thick as thieves, basically. Even after our family moved to Buffalo when I was 15, I would ride the Greyhound bus 6 hours, or it would be 8 hours with stops and everything, out to Buffalo to go see her at least a couple times a year. She would come see me when I got my license, on the day I turned like 16, or a couple months later. I started driving my Toyota Tercel out to see her. Like, we were so tight over the years. And in the world before cell phones and texting, we wrote each other letters, we talked on the phone, we did what we could to stay in touch. Unfortunately, over the years, though, we just kind of grew apart. And then I left my faith, and she did not. She stayed a devout follower her entire life, and I did not. And so either that probably hurt her, and it made us incredibly alienated, to the point where when she got married, which she did eventually, she didn't even, I wasn't even invited. I learned it from Lisa, who then, made sure that I was invited. But I guess, I had just hurt her. So eventually, when I finally came back, I remember at one point, before I left the church, she had gotten pregnant finally, and she had a little baby girl, and her name was Joy, and she died like 5 hours after she was born. And I remember just weeping on the phone with her upstairs in my bedroom. We had kind of grown apart, but like we were still so connected. It chokes me up to think about it. After that, I ended up leaving the church, and that's what really, really, I think, sealed the deal. Even before I left the church, we had really separated, and she had not asked me to be in her wedding, and it hurt me. But when she lost Joy, she was on the phone with me, because that was just, that was where we started to rekindle. And then I left the church, and we were alienated for a really long time. We would sort of talk on Facebook once that became a thing and stay in touch. But I finally got into the relationship I'm in now and recommitted my life to my faith and to God, and did my husband. And she and I had started to reconnect. And I wanted so badly to bring him out to Buffalo. She had moved to Oklahoma for a long time with her husband after the passing of Joy. She couldn't have any more children. She never did have a child, which breaks my heart because I would love to be able to have that in my life as Anne's child, but she never did have a child. Yeah, so when she came back from Oklahoma, at the same time that we started to reevaluate our lives and devote ourselves back to faith, and we had started to really ramp up our friendship again on Facebook. And I thought for sure that William and I would get out there and go see her. And so I'm gonna cry, I think. So the same week that I had started that painting, that duck painting, I found out on Facebook via her husband, who I was not close to, obviously, that she had passed. And not only that, but I had missed the memorial service. I had missed everything. And it's funny because even though she was like not there like recently physically in my life, she was like a common thread in my life. She was a space of consistency and love and joy. And I felt like I didn't have that really. Honestly, William and I were going through some really rough patches already because our business we decided to close down our business, and his mom had passed away, and we had my homeless brother living with us. Just my daughter, we realized, decided to stay in Pennsylvania instead of coming back home. Oh, there were so many things, and I needed that thread, at that time. And when it got severed, I felt like my whole world got severed. And every time I would look at that painting, I would just feel sick. I tried to open up the app for the program, and every time I did, I would just feel overwhelmed with grief. And so, a couple weeks ago when I started to get back into the studio, it was on my heart, even though I was like way behind in the program and I'll never catch up. It was on my heart to try to reclaim something that I had lost. And I finally felt free to be able to do so. And, I'm glad I did, because that's what she would have wanted. She would have wanted me to keep going and to keep laughing, to keep having joy, and to keep my heart fixed on God and what He has for me, which is way better than living in perpetual sorrow. So there's a song out there that says, I'm trading my sorrows, I'm trading my pain, I'm laying it down for the joy of the Lord. And so that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing in 2026. I'm not just doing it for myself. I'm doing it for Anne. I'm doing it for William. I'm doing it for Naomi and anybody else in my life that has been there, a constant source of love and joy. And I'm just so grateful for those people. And I'm grateful for you. If you made it this far in the video, I appreciate you putting up with my tears. If you like my content or my artwork or anything that you see on my channel, I would really love to have you join me and subscribe. Give me a like, give me a comment. If you can relate to my story in any way, I'd love to know. And if you're an artist, I'd love to be friends and support your journey. So thank you so much. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will catch you in the next video.